You are listening to KC Sports Network, the #1 podcast network for today's Kansas City sports fans. With former players from your favorite teams, informed perspectives, and former insiders, this is the place for you. KC Sports Network is proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
Hello, welcome into another Fremont Pod. I am John Kurtz, joined by Cole Manbeck and Derek Young. If I seem a little leery, a little beleaguered, it's because that was not a fun Saturday. Not a fun Saturday, heading into not a real fun Sunday, and then waking up wrong side of the bed here Monday morning. So, okay, I will try to put on a happy enough face and get us through this show as your fearless leader, I suppose. Here, you may need, someone could pour me some 360 vodka right now. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning, but that could probably help. Maybe some 360 vodka or some Ben Holiday bottled and bond bourbon, of course, from Holiday Distillery. Could, at least do a little something. Eventually, it might make me a little bit more sad. I don't know. But for now, it'll be okay. But if you're going to the game this weekend, 2:30, got a great kick time, classic kick time in the middle of the day. I always think of the old Keith Jackson spot. And it should be fun to get everybody there, homecoming at Bill Snyder Family Stadium. So stock up on the Holiday Distillery liquor, and make sure you have it ready to go at Bill Snyder Family Stadium this weekend. Support those that support us. They're great K-State fans, K-State folks, and we appreciate them. All right, K-State loses a 28-10 lead in Fort Worth, and if you would have just told me that as the storyline, K-State loses a 38-10 lead by allowing 28 unanswered points, I'd be furious, I'd be livid, and instead I'm just kind of despondent because I can't really even be that mad at the team for how it happened because they were just so decimated by injury. The quarterback is the obvious place to start. Adrian Martinez only plays one series. Will Howard comes in and balls out, man. I mean, 4 touchdown drives in the first half after Adrian Martinez goes out. He looks amazing. Then he gets hurt at one point, and you have to go to Jake Rubley, which was very costly because it turned into bad interception, turnover on downs when he couldn't execute a quarterback sneak. That obviously really hurt. But the most impactful injury of the game to me was Daniel Green. And I think we all agree on that, going out at linebacker. That looks like it could be a long-term thing. You had Julius Brents giving up a touchdown when he was out there and probably shouldn't have been because he was hurt. Felix Anudike-Uzomah still limited. Deuce Vaughn went to the locker room at one point. Josh Hayes was in the locker room at one point. We're talking about either guys that were preseason All Big 12 or playing at first-team All Big 12 levels this year. And who the hell knows what that roster is going to look like moving forward this year. So I'm just not in a great place. Someone else want to take this? Maybe we'll use Derek as a little palate cleanser in between here before we get to Cole, who had the miserable experience of dealing with TCU fans actually in Fort Worth to go along with all of this. So Derek, voice of reason, your perspective on what happened in TCU from a global standpoint.
Well, from the fan experience side, and Cole can kind of share his angle here, but I will say what he is about to share, I heard from several fans, and they had to stop the game at one point because Chris Kleiman had to interrupt it. And
me too, by the way. My YouTube live chat, Cole, I had like 3 people pay me to tell me that they had such a bad experience just like you did. So, yeah.
And Chris Kleiman had to stop the game and go to the official at one point because he was having beer cans and batteries thrown at him. So, TCU, get your shit together a little bit when it comes to, that kind of experience because, you shouldn't have opposing fans leaving unsafe or players and coaches on the sideline not feeling safe either. That's just uncalled for. When it comes to the injury standpoint, it's probably as bad as it seems. And I'll say this, some of it's just a bad omen of playing TCU this year. TCU separated the shoulder of Jalen Daniels. They concussed Dylan Gabriel. They furthered Spencer Sanders' problems. So a bit of the trend is playing TCU apparently. I don't know what they're doing this year, if they're just a more physical team, but they seem to have every team limping after they play them. And maybe that's a compliment to them. I don't know, but it certainly has Kansas State in a problematic spot. Oklahoma State comes into Manhattan next weekend, and they're as beat up as Kansas State, though, to be fair. They were without 6 starters against Texas and then lost 2 or 3 more in that Texas game, and Spencer Sanders is quite hobbled as well. Who Kansas State will have a quarterback is anyone's guess at this point. I do not have the details on how long or how severe Adrian Martinez, the situation is, I do know that he was injured from the Iowa State game. That's where his ailment started. He might have picked up something else as well, but that's where it began. If they didn't have a bye week, I don't know that he would have been able to play TCU a week after the Iowa State game. So he was already kind of a little, going into the game a little beat up. I mean, the team was in general. A bye week's nice, but sometimes it's not always as what you need. Felix is probably something that they're just going to have to deal with all year. That's kind of a nagging injury that he's had since preseason camp. So that one's not going away, and hopefully it can just improve, you would hope. I doubt he's going to be practicing much, but we'll see. When it comes to Julius Brents, that sounds a little bit better. Can't say I know with 100% certainty. It's not like a bunch of people confirming that to me, but I did have one person with knowledge kind of shed some light that would seem that one's maybe not as bad. So, but Adrian Martinez and Will Howard both are undergoing further examination. I don't know who's going to be the quarterback. I would lean towards Will Howard, but I just don't know at this point. And
who's number 2 on that likelihood pecking order?
I mean, I don't know right now because I just don't know.
I feel like it's Jake Rubley, and I feel like I don't.
Yeah, I just don't know the severity of what Adrian Martinez's situation is. Because the one that sounds the most problematic is probably Daniel Green. That one looked to be the worst just because of the way he had no pads on, basically wrapped up around the midsection. So, you can guess what the injury might be there, and that doesn't sound good. And quite frankly, because of the drop-off there, I'm not going to run anyone down, but because of the drop-off there, that's probably the one that's a little bit more crippling from a performance standpoint when it comes to Kansas State.
I think Daniel Green's probably one of the top 2 or 3 guys this football team could ill afford to lose this season to injury. And now it looks like he's probably going to be out multiple weeks based off the severity of what that looked like. DY, he walked right in front of our section when he went back out of the tunnel. And like you said, he was heavily wrapped around the abdomen area, looked in a lot of pain. And so that was a huge blow. And that really shifted the game. I mean, TCU ran the ball 56 times in the game. That was a season high by TCU. The most they had ran it in a game leading up to that contest was 43 times. They made it apparent when Daniel Green went out of that game that they wanted to run the ball. They ran the ball on 68% of their total offensive plays. The previous season high by TCU in a game was 56%. So they made that a point of focus. And, look, K-State ultimately held them to 3.8 yards per carry, guys, which was a season worst for TCU, believe it or not. But it didn't feel that way watching it. It felt like TCU was ground and pounding K-State in the running game, but K-State's defense just wore down. I mean, third down. To me, that was the biggest story of the game, DY. The third downs, K-State couldn't get off the field. And the time of possession, 38 minutes to 21 minutes. K-State on the field for 82 plays, tying a season high for that K-State defense in terms of number of plays that they've been on the field. And the third downs, you're right, 12 to 23 between third and fourth downs for TCU. This is a K-State defense that was holding teams to 29 of 98, 30% on third and fourth downs heading into that game. I think probably the biggest frustration was it wasn't just third and shorts being converted, guys. It was the third and longs. TCU converted 7 third and 6 or longer in that game. And I think one of the things we've talked about, and we'll hit on this more, is the 3 and out before halftime when it was 28-10 by K-State's offense. But I think you could point to also one of the other biggest game-changing plays was TCU's first drive in the second half. They're at the K-State 41-yard line and have 3rd and 17 after a Gavin Forche sack. 3rd and 17 at the K-State 41, K-State up 11. They throw a dump-off pass to Kendre Miller, and K-State misses 3 or 4 tackles and allows an 18-yard catch for a first down. TCU's, if you hold them to 8 or 9 yards, they're kicking a 50-yard field goal to make it an 8-point game, a difficult field goal with the way that wind was moving around. And instead, you give up a first down, and they ultimately get a touchdown. That was a huge, huge shift as well. But yet, to the injuries, I've never seen anything quite like it. It was just the walking wounded, walking right in front of us to the K-State locker room. Every time we looked down, we were about 10 rows up on the K-State sideline. Every time we looked down, there was another K-State player limping to the locker room. And it wasn't just any K-State player. The thing that hurt the most, it was their best players. It's the guys they could ill afford to lose. Julius Prince, Daniel Green, 2 first team all Big 12 preseason players. Josh Hayes, midseason All-American.
Yeah.
I mean, he goes to the locker. I mean, it's just your starting quarterback. Then your other quarterback, who's absolutely balling out and plays the game of his life, gets hurt. It was just your starting tight end. It was just insane. So,
yeah, that's the other thing. It was like, yeah, Sinnott goes down, and I didn't love how that looks. And like that, I mean, he's such a critical part of both the passing and running games. I mean, we've seen at times he's been a pretty valuable asset in the passing game, and obviously he can block. And they've got problems with some of the other tight ends on the roster and blocking. It's just like, yeah, you laughed. That was the one where I was laughing by the point that happened. I think Sinnott was the last one, right, to get hurt in the game, and you're just laughing. What else are you going to do?
And Deuce heads to the locker room at one point, limping. We know he's banged up. Look, he has 12 carries in that game. It's clear that they're trying to limit some of his touches probably as a result. And it stinks. It stinks. You had the bye, and now you feel more banged up than ever. We thought the bye came at a good time, and unfortunately now you got to go through a grinder of these next 5 games through this schedule against some of your most difficult opponents, just beat up. And there's really no way to get these guys healthy aside from missing games for some of them. So unfortunate, miserable fan experience, disgraceful by TCU. That's the worst fan base in the Big 12 in my eyes now. I'm never going back. I think our group of 8, we've all conceded we're not going to go back to Fort Worth. That was despicable. Their student, I'm not going to label every TCU fan. I know it's the minority, but that student section, the Big 12 needs to step in, because TCU's athletic department, Jeremiah Donati, their AD, clearly isn't. He walked by the student section and they chanted his name, and he celebrated with them, and he celebrated it on Twitter after the game. But you know what TCU didn't do? They didn't make an announcement on the PA about their fans throwing beer at K-State's players, at their staff. And it frankly pissed me off like I've never been pissed off before. God. Freaking assholes.
Which is just bizarre. I've covered, I was saying this on my live last night, but I've covered 4 games, I believe, at Amon G. Carter, 12, 14, 16, 18. 12 and 14, those were 2 pretty highly looked forward to matchups. Like 14, K-State was in the midst of having the best non-11 or 12 K-State regular season under Snyder. That was a 9-win team with Jake Waters, and they had a chance going into the last week of the regular season at a Big 12 title. So that TCU game was, that was their big year up at the top. So that was a good game, big game, night game. And I don't even really remember it being that rowdy. 2012, K-State was number 1 in the BCS, I believe, when they rolled in there. I don't really remember that game even being that rowdy. I'm sure, I guess it probably was, but there was nothing crazy like that. And then 16 and 18, those were just much more. K-State's 16 team had a nice enough year, but those were not like high profile teams or high profile big games. So there was like nobody there. So that's what I mean. My lasting memories of Amon G. Carter are just nobody being there, like students not being there. So like I'm sure they're just thrilled to have students there, but like, all these trust fund kids getting loaded and throwing beers on the sideline doesn't seem like the greatest thing in the world to be doing.
Yeah, they look, I know K-State students are behind the opposing bench, right? But I mean, Kansas State's not selling beer, so that's not a problem. Maybe it would be a problem at Kansas State if they gave them beer, but I would push to move the K-State, the opposing team's bench, to the other sideline if this doesn't stop, because that was complete Bush League bullshit. And it wasn't just like I had TCU fans in my mentions. Oh, maybe one or B. They threw dozens of beer bottles at K-State's sideline. It just kept happening. And they were throwing it in the end zone. Chris Kleiman sprinted down the sideline to call a timeout. They chuck a beer bottle at him. Happened right in front of us. It pisses me off more that it happened to the players and the staff, but it also was happening in the stands. All right. They had them. They were throwing beer bottles at the K-State fans in our section, just spraying K-State fans with beer. K-State fans weren't saying anything. The cops are just as big of a disgrace, and the security team at TCU, as they came down, just laughable. All of the K-State fans are pointing at a TCU fan that threw beer at a K-State fan, and they believe the TCU folks that pointed at the K-State guy that got beer showered on him, and they escorted the K-State fan out of the stadium. They let the TCU fan stay. This type of bullshit that happened. We went up to the cops with about 4 minutes left in the game and told them to do their job. And they told us there was nothing they could do. So, yeah. They told us to tell the school because they've been telling Jeremiah Donati in the athletic department that it's a problem. I just feel bad for anybody that took their kids to the game, because I would have been rushing my family out of there, because it would not have felt safe walking to the car. So, yeah. Anyways, I digress. I don't mean to take us on a tangent, but I hope the Big 12 does something about this, and I hope K-State files something with the conference, because that was embarrassing.
Yeah. Good feelings, good vibes all the way around. Everything about that experience for everybody, huh? It was just wonderful. And now, not only are you going into this stretch so beat up and injured, the other part of it is, Cole, and I know we were discussing this before. You're telling me, hey, don't just concede the next couple games, whatever. I'm like, all right, well, this injury situation combined with, you know who the next three on the schedule are? You know how many wins Chris Kleiman has on the next three, over the next three teams on the schedule?
Yeah, 0.
0. Not a one. Not a one. These have been the three teams, Oklahoma State, Texas, and Baylor, that have just owned Kleiman since he's been the head coach. So, yeah, I'm not in a great spot with this. Let's not totally leave this game yet against TCU. Cole, you mentioned the 28-10 spot. I mean, if we are going to, to me, if you're going to circle a moment in this game where in the second half, by the time all the injuries had happened and like Howard was, I mean, I was just kind of like, whatever, this is going to happen. But at a point where the game still was very much in doubt and it felt like you could totally go step on the throat, 28-10, you get a stop. Was that a fourth down stop by the defense that got the ball back? I can't remember. Yeah. Okay. They get a fourth down stop. They get the ball back. It's 28-10. All the momentum in the world. Will Howard is looking like, I don't know, like dialed in Tom Brady from 2007, throwing to Randy Moss, just darts all over the field. And I believe it was run, quarterback draw was that sequence, and quarterback draw.
They had one pass.
Okay. And quarterback draw on 3rd and 10, Will Howard, we don't need design runs with Will Howard, especially when you already have one quarterback out of the game. But it was such a conservative call. It was not taking advantage, really, to me, of that moment there. And I hate to harp on it too much because the offense worked so well for the 4 possessions before that with a backup quarterback. It's hard to really say like, oh, the offense was that bad. But that was a spot that was very frustrating to me because, like, go for the jugular. You get up 35-10. Now, not only are you doing that, but you're taking time off the clock. You're not giving it right back to TCU. There's less of a chance that they hit that drive at the end of the half because it's just the way it played out was the perfect momentum boost for TCU to be able to book in the half with a touchdown and a touchdown. And so, yeah, that spot killed me.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that. And I think in their defense, and I'm with you. I think what I probably didn't like was just going, the QB run on 3rd and long. I think that's almost like maybe they thought they had something there, but that seems to not just throw the ball. You're throwing the ball fine, just to do that. But I guess my only defense was that same sequence merited a first down in 2 prior drives where they scored, where they also ran on 3rd and long once. So I think maybe they just went back to the well one too many times. I don't know. I certainly think the sequence didn't necessarily piss me off. I would say the 3rd down call is just a little bit of a head scratcher running with a quarterback that's not necessarily explosive on 3rd and long. I think you're asking for a little bit of trouble in that scenario. Perhaps they thought that they were just going to get enough and make it 4th and manageable. Maybe that was the plan too. I think that maybe that probably does make more sense. I still didn't like it, but I'm just trying to find and the answers to why they justified doing what they did.
I think they may have thought that TCU trying to make a play because they were kind of desperate at that point, down 18, that they would blitz and that K-State could catch them in that scenario where they're trying to get overly aggressive blitz and they could blitz them with a quarterback draw. I mean, we remember Will Howard at TCU in 2020 when he busted an 80-yard quarterback draw at K-State's own goal line in a situation. So they probably thought that may have been an opportunity, but I'm with you guys. I wanted him to, the way he was dialed in throwing the football. Heck, he converted a 3rd and 16 on a beautiful dime to Malik Knowles for 37 yards earlier in the game. And then we saw the absolute dime of a throw to Phillip Brooks on a 4th and 10 when K-State was down 38-28 with about 9-10 minutes left in the game, that threw between 2 defenders in the perfect spot. So Will Howard was converting in those situations, dropping back to pass, and I would have liked to have seen K-State do something there. Obviously, that did feel like a game-changing scenario, just because you had a feeling with K-State being as banged up as they were defensively that TCU had a very good chance to double up on touchdowns to end the half and to open the second half and reset, and that would completely re-energize that stadium. If K-State could have went down and scored a touchdown right before half to get up 25, half that stadium's clearing out. I'm just telling you, there's a lot of bandwagon fans down there, and I think a lot of those students are going out to start drinking, and the energy sucked out of that place. But then they get life with that touchdown before half, and they know they get the ball to start the second half, and K-State just couldn't stop them. And it ultimately, we talked about the defense boiling down, wearing down in the game. And look, K-State had 8 drives. 8 of their 11 drives went for 4 plays or less. I mean, 3 of their 4 touchdowns were 4 plays or less. And I mean, it's not a terrible thing. They're getting explosives, but it just kept putting the defense back out on the field, and the defense couldn't get off the field in the third down situations we talked about. But I do want to shout out Will Howard. I mean, like we just talked about, he was terrific in that game to step in that atmosphere and play the way he did. Sensational. He took significant strides, clearly. Hopefully he can consistently put it together. But I mean, K-State had 7 passes of 20 or more yards in that game with Will Howard. They were explosive in the passing play. The Cade Warner catch was a heck of a catch by him, but most of those throws were just beautiful deliveries. Nice ball to DJ Giddens and to Deuce Vaughn on a wheel route.
That kind of made me think about, when the Kansas TCU game happened, Jalen Daniels separates his shoulder, has to go out. Jason Bean comes
the same thing.
And Jason Bean just starts, throwing dots everywhere, and Kansas almost beats TCU. I just remember, maybe it was just on my message board at K-State Online, so maybe it's a little bit too much of an ecosystem there. But every Kansas State fan was like pissed and frustrated because they were thinking KU still had this probably amazing season happening, and they bring in another quarterback that's just throwing dimes everywhere. They're like, why can't that happen to us? Well, it just did. I mean, you got. So for those that said that at the time and were really frustrated, like, how's Kansas have 2 quarterbacks and we're still stuck here? And maybe Kansas State has 2 quarterbacks. I mean, small sample size, I get. But Will Howard just did everyone was like belly aching about when Jason Bean came in and threw dots all over the place on TCU as well.
Yeah, but do they have two healthy quarterbacks? Is Will Howard healthy? That's another part of this damn game. And Will Howard starts balling out and then busts up his shoulder. Of course.
I think Will Howard's going. If I had to guess, I think Will Howard's going to be able to play this week. But but that's just a point that I wanted to make because I think that's imperative. Because everyone was trying to give Kansas State shit left and right, Colin Klein shit left and right when that Jason Bean thing happened because K-State can't have that happen. Well, they just did. So eat your words if you were the one out there saying that when Jason Bean exploded is all I'm saying. Yeah. And for the ones, and I get it, because it's a point of frustration. It's fresh. The wounds are fresh, and I get it. Let's say, look, in totality, the injury situation is much more worse at Kansas State than what is typically seen, especially for one game, what you saw, like the quantity. But in terms of quarterback, and I get it because we'll get into this with the whole quarterback run game, and I get the frustrations with that. But Kansas State isn't the only one, dealing with quarterback issues. I mean, Texas Tech's to their 3rd quarterback already this season. Oklahoma State is got a walking wounded person with Spencer Sanders, and he's basically a game time decision every week. Dylan Gabriel missed 2 games, 2.5 games, 3 games, I think. They were down to their 3rd quarterback at one point already this season. TCU's the only lucky one apparently that is getting by with everything. Baylor, Blake Shapen, pretty sure he's playing banged up. It is a game time decision about every week. Texas lost Quinn Ewers for multiple games. Hudson Card then got hurt as well, and I think they got down to their 3rd quarterback at one point already this season. Kansas is down to Jason Bean, like we already said. Jalen Daniels is going to miss half the season, right? Hunter Deckers seems like he's okay. JT Daniels, ironically, is okay when he's the most injury-prone quarterback in the entire conference.
Well, Hunter Deckers is okay because he throws the ball whenever they get
What I'm saying is that there's only 2 healthy starting quarterbacks in this Big 12 right now.
I just had to take a shot at Iowa State to make me feel better, DY.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
And I approve, and that's appropriate. We can
that.
But
It's
there is not. Maybe the Big 12 is just the defenses are just beating the crap out of people this year because there's Hunter Deckers and JT Daniels, the only healthy quarterback, and Max Duggan, the only 3 healthy quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah.
But I do. You can, then that is a fair trend point to give me the trend for this year, but I'm going to give you the trend for K-State football. Last year, quarterback hurt. 2020, quarterback hurt. I mean, go back to Jesse Ertz, quarterback getting hurt. Snyder's running him out, getting him.
Okay, that's also across 2 coaches. And the Skyler thing was also because of a late cheap shot hit.
But getting quarterbacks, I mean, even Jake Waters and Daniel Sams both had
I know, but that's also
a
different
with when they were playing quarterback, and it's because one thing that is crossing both coaching lines is running the quarterback a lot, and the offense that they run is not very conducive to receiver recruiting, and they can't recruit receivers. I feel like they're going to have to change. They took a baby step toward modernizing the offense this past year, but now you've got Avery Johnson coming in who can sling it and has that Patrick Mahomes style of play. I'm not trying to say he is Patrick Mahomes, but he plays that sort of style where he's going to be good at throwing off platform, moving on the run, and just distributing the ball. Change, for the love of God, please just get away from this. We're not doing this every year.
I get that, but Skylar Thompson's 2020 wasn't a QB run. 2021 wasn't a QB run. Adrian's probably was. I get that, but Will Howard is hurt, and there's been 4 design quarterback runs for him the entire season across 7 games. So I get that frustration, but the quarterback run's actually not the one doing it.
Was it 2021? Skylar was quarterback run. Was that not?
He was trying to run block, without the ball, and his knee gave out. I mean, the only thing you could argue though, DY, is
I'm not saying Skylar Thompson has never got hurt from the quarterback run game.
Yeah, the only thing you could argue is we don't know the wear and tear and how that makes it more likely that these guys get hurt on a certain play. I mean, they take so many hits during the year. Does that make them more susceptible to one of those injuries when it's not a running? I don't know.
We know it's how it happened to Adrian.
Maybe, but he the when he went out to run block, that seemed like a pretty
a fluky deal.
Yeah, non-contact.
Yeah. I mean, it's been some bad luck. There's no doubt that K-State has had some bad luck.
Shot from a Tech player in 20. I mean,
but I do agree. Yeah, I do agree though with John's point. It as a K-State fan, there's a frustration because you got to go back to when do you have to go back to the Ron Prince era? The last time you had a fully healthy quarterback an entire year. Colin Klein played banged up. 2011, 2012, we know Jake Waters was beat up like crazy in 14.
Jake Waters had the AC joint thing. Yeah.
And 13, didn't he miss a couple games in 13 too?
Yeah, I think so.
That's why they went Daniel Sams, because Waters was banged up some as well.
We're just saying the Chris Kleiman era, it's been pretty bad luck oriented.
Yeah. But it's a combination. It's not just that you're putting these guys more at risk, but then at the same time, you're also
I just think combining what happened under Bill Snyder to Chris Kleiman doesn't apply.
I think they've carried over a lot of the same strategy of wanting to utilize quarterback run game.
They haven't had the same results.
It's such a huge part of their offense, and I think they need to move away from that because
Thompson had a non-contact injury from run blocking, and then he got a cheap shot from the Texas Tech player. Will Howard's ran the ball 4 times all year. For the Chris Kleiman era, I don't think it's having an impact.
Well, but they did. I think they ran the ball with Will Howard with a busted up shoulder on Saturday. They called.
I was going to say he already had.
That's a problem.
He ran 4 times all year before it happened. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I know. I'm just saying, they still were willing to run a quarterback with a busted shoulder. That's poor. That can't happen. That's my issue. It shows a willingness to still risk your quarterback when you're down to your second string quarterback and run him after he's already hurt. That's
and we're glossing over Adrian Martinez. I'd
say one time since he got hired in 2019.
Adrian Martinez, and no. I mean, because Will Howard, the play he got hurt, he gets thrown down. He's running the ball and he gets thrown down on the ground.
Yes, but it's not 4 runs all year. If he gets hurt after 4 runs, that seems like bad luck to me.
I mean, okay, but I feel like we're moving a lot of goalposts here.
That did not get hurt after 4 runs.
We're moving a lot of goalposts here. They've had 2 quarterbacks this year get hurt on QB run, and now Jake Rubley came in and arguably cost him the game with the 2 possessions that he had because he's just not ready. I mean, and there's another point that I'll make too about this. Texas Tech, yes, is down to their 3rd string quarterback. It's a 4-star young kid who's been, I believe, in the program the same amount of time that Jake Rubley has. And Baron Morton now looks like the truth. That kid came out and balled and put up 300 yards in his first 2 starts, and Jake Rubley looked completely lost when he came into the game. So, I mean, that's another part of it too. But I didn't even get to the back half of this.
The first team reps during that week of practice before he played.
I think the part of this too that is much more imperative is also that we bitched and moaned about their receiver recruiting forever. Well, it's hard to do that in this offense that relies so much on quarterback run. And so you're taking steps, modernize the offense. It'll be better for you from an injury standpoint. You have a quarterback that you can really take advantage of with, and it will become a more attractive way to recruit skill players and just kind of catch back up with the rest of the modern world in college football. So that's why I would advocate for it, but you can't.
I would advocate for it. I just think it's bad luck more than the QB run.
Yeah, I would like to see him. I'm not saying you have to completely abandon the QB run game. I just like to see it cut down to 4 or 5 QB design runs a game if you're going to go with that. Adrian mentioned to us, and he mentioned to numerous people, that part of the reason he came to K-State, he wanted to run the ball less, and he's been injury prone in his career, and yet he's averaged more carries per game at K-State than any point in his career at Nebraska. And so the wear and tear of that and the physicality, look, we all enjoy watching him run. I mean, he's exciting in the open field, and it's a big part of his game. But ultimately now he's banged up as a result, and K-State's in a difficult situation. And I just think we'd like to see him modernize it. I know you agree with that, DY. You'd like to see him get some better receivers.
With Adrian, some of it, those runs, the reason why he's running more than he ever has in his career was the pocket's really breaking down. A lot of QB scrambles this year. So I think the pass pro is conducive to those rushing numbers being what they are. And he will probably take some personal accountability to this. Some of it was he was unwilling to throw the ball the first 3 weeks.
Yeah,
true. I mean, that's all true. I mean, look, I guess I just looking forward. If Will Howard's going to have an injury to his non-throwing shoulder, I mean, I just worry what happens when he gets hit. If he is indeed going to be able to play, I guess that just means a lot of drop back passing and then more reliance on Deuce, if you can, if you can, because of the injury that he's going through right now. Otherwise, I guess more DJ Giddens. But then, man, you've gone from the next L. Roberson, Darren Sproles to Will Howard and DJ Giddens pretty quick. Not that I think those guys are bad players, but I wonder if there's a little bit of – I hope that this carries over with Will. I mean, I obviously have never seen him play like that.
I'll say this. I think Will Howard can beat Oklahoma State. He probably should have in 2020 if he didn't fumble it.
He probably should have in 2020.
If Will Howard plays like he did against TCU, they absolutely can beat Oklahoma State. It's obviously now Oklahoma State's going to prep for Will Howard. TCU, new coaching staff. I think you made that. Maybe it was you, John, that made that point. New coaching staff
would have probably had no idea.
Yeah, they hadn't seen Will Howard at TCU. New coaching staff comes in the game. K-State. Did you guys feel like Kansas State ran a little different offense with Will? I mean, some of those plays they were running, I don't know.
I think Will was just a little bit more willing to.
He was a lot more willing to just throw it up. I mean, the Cade Warner touchdown.
It looked pretty similar. I just think that he was a little bit more aggressive in certain throwing windows that Adrian may not have been.
Yeah, that very well could have been it. Just the seeing DJ Giddens pass, out of the backfield, downfield, 26 yards, and then followed right back up with a wheel route to Deuce. And I know they've ran wheel routes to Deuce before this year. So the pop pass.
Another thing, the passing game to Deuce Vaughn, for whatever reason, always explodes under Will Howard. And hey, it happens in the NFL. Yeah. I used this example on one of my stories. Alvin Kamara, when he's with Andy Dalton, his numbers explode. When he's with Jameis Winston, he barely gets the ball in the passing game. It's kind of the same way with Deuce. When he's got other quarterbacks around him, whether it be Skyler or Adrian, not necessarily as much of a weapon in the passing game. But when Will Howard's the quarterback, and maybe because maybe he's better against the blitz because he finds the outlet a little bit better. When Adrian sees the blitz, he just bails. When Skyler sees the blitz, he gets hurt. Or he stays in the pocket and he maneuvers it well. Skyler's pocket poise did improve, incredibly well in his last year at Kansas State. But when Will Howard, I mean, he gets the ball to Deuce a lot. I mean, Deuce caught 4 balls on Saturday. He hasn't caught 4 balls all year, I don't think.
Yeah. The thing with Oklahoma State that obviously worries you, they got a good defensive front. Probably they are banged up, definitely. Brock Martin didn't play.
Martin didn't play, and then the other kid, Evers, quit. He opted out, and they had a third one leave the game against Texas and never returned, which is pretty good.
Was it Lacey? He's one of the others that concerns me. They've got good defensive ends. I don't know Brock Martin's status for Saturday. It would be helpful if he doesn't play.
He was not dressed at all. And
okay.
Last week.
I wasn't able to. Yeah. He is. I wasn't able to watch a lot of the game. I was trying to stream it from the TCU parking lot a little bit on my phone, but and I know we'll talk more about Oklahoma State on Thursday's show, but they're going to fully prep for Will Howard, and they're going to probably try to bring a lot of pressure, a lot of different looks on that front. And the thing that does concern you is that they know Will Howard's banged up now. They're going to go after him, and they're also probably not going to respect him running the football, so they'll completely key in on Deuce. And so Deuce, we already know, like, you need Adrian to help take some pressure and alleviate, teams keying in on Deuce. They're going to completely lock in on him. The only way that's going to change is if Will can throw the ball similar to what he did and stretch the field against Oklahoma State and make him pay. It will help that he's at home. It's a home game. He's played Oklahoma State before, played him in 2020, different defensive coordinator, but should have won that game. So we'll see, guys. I don't know. Like we'd be feeling a lot better if Kansas State can somehow, win that game against a top 10 opponent at home, be the biggest home win in quite some time, and jump right back up to 16, 17 in the polls and be tied for first in the Big 12.
Because I view, and obviously you need to be somewhat healthy, and I know that's Kurtz's bugaboo right now, and that's very fair, but assuming they can be healthy enough and maybe get Daniel Green back fairly soon. But because I view Baylor, West Virginia, Kansas at the end of the season as very winnable games, especially the way Baylor looks right now, splitting Oklahoma State, Texas, if you took care of business in that last 25% of your schedule, 7-2.
Yeah, but you better split it by beating Oklahoma State, or else the tiebreakers are not going to do you any favors at all.
I agree with that, though. With the way this season has gone, I'm not guaranteeing Oklahoma State's going to be completely perfect either.
That's what I mean. This is
I just have a hard time thinking 7. I just have a hard time thinking 7-2 keeps you out this year when everyone's beating everybody.
Yeah,
maybe, but it would be it's the worst two teams you could lose to. Because I got news for you, Texas is losing again. Texas is losing again.
State's losing again. As banged up as they are, yeah, I think Oklahoma State will lose again.
Yeah, I think beating Oklahoma State would be the more important.
It's ideal
victory. Yep. Yeah, Texas already having 2 losses, and to your point, John, they got to play TCU. They got to play Baylor. They got
to play Kansas.
Texas will probably beat TCU the way the season's going.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't be surprised, guys, at all if TCU goes to Morgantown and loses this Saturday. Like that would not.
What I'm saying, everybody's going to be West Virginia. Just took care of Baylor.
I think
most of my despair is about the injuries here. If I were to really sit down and think about it and get mad, I mean, yes, I could see TCU losing to West Virginia because I don't think TCU is that great. I think K-State at full strength.
I don't think Oklahoma State is that great. And
I'm just making the point. I think K-State at full strength wins the game.
Yeah. So do I. They were up 28-10 with their backup.
Yeah, I mean, anywhere remotely close to full strength, I think you're winning that game.
28-10 on the road at night with their backup quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, TCU has come back now in the last 2 weeks from 17 and 18 points.
Oklahoma State was healthier than Kansas. Well, maybe they weren't. I don't know. But Oklahoma State had the same thing happen to them that K-State did to TCU, and that had to happen to them with Spencer Sanders, a quarterback, not their backup. Yeah,
there's something to be said about the ability to come back, fight back, but I think TCU is a beneficiary of a lot of luck factor coming into play. And so I think that things are going to even out eventually for them. And I would not be surprised at all if it starts in Morgantown. It'll be interesting to watch that game. Guys, just thinking at we touched on a little bit about Daniel Green kind of pivoting back to the defense. I think one of the biggest frustrations for all of us and K-State fans in general is the linebacker position. I was looking through why they're in the situation they're in. They're having to rely. Austin Moore is a heck of a player. They've been very fortunate because he was a former walk-on that he's turned into what he has. But I looked at the linebackers they've signed and out of the prep ranks and then in the transfer portal since the Kleiman era began. Jeremiah Harris, gone after year one. DeMarcus Hayes, gone after year one. Devontae Pritchard, gone after year one. Gavin Haselhorst was kind of a, didn't really have a position, right? Kind of edge linebacker, gone after year one. Those are your prep linebackers. Brandon Jennings, Will Honus, Sean Robinson, Eric Munoz out of the transfer portal. All of them gone. Well, Will Honus, unfortunate, wasn't healthy, but the point that you were going to have to,
You know what's crazy? There's 4 transfer portal linebackers, and they'll probably hate that we're talking about this and shining a light on it because this is definitely their negative point. But you went through it. Brandon Jennings, Sean Robinson, Will Honus, Eric Munoz, 4 transfer portal linebackers, guys that you're trying to add to support your group in immediate fashion for the most part. Not a single one of them took a snap.
Yeah. These are guys that, all of these guys left within 1 year.
Zero snaps between those 4 players. So now some of it is bad luck, but you're accepting that bad luck a little bit with Will Honus because he already had a checkered past when it came to injuries.
Well, that's the thing. Kansas State was going to rely on Will Honus, who had severe injury history.
But if you're Kansas State, and also be a little realistic here, and that's where you kind of have to corner the market a little bit, right? You're not Oklahoma, you're not Texas, so you have to find those, maybe players or places that can bring you a lot of success that maybe people won't look into as much. Now, I'm not saying they have to do that exclusively 100% of the time, but that's probably those risks, such as Will Honus and Sean Robinson. Those are the ones you kind of do have to take if you are Kansas State.
And to be fair, I discounted. I didn't include in there Jake Clifton and Toby, right? I certainly think those are the highest upside linebackers. Yeah, they're on the traveling roster, which, is encouraging. And I think they have bright. Yeah, I think they have potential, bright futures here. So I will say that signed out of the prep ranks, but it's just frustrating that they're in a situation where Desmond Purnell does look good. I should have mentioned him. He is a linebacker. He was listed as a safety when he brought him in, but he's been moved to linebacker. So he was a guy that this staff signed. It's just frustrating that they're relying on. They had walk-on after walk-on out there.
The problem is almost one linebacker spot, right? Because behind Austin Moore was supposed to be Will Honus, and obviously something happened there. He's not going to play. But you still have Gavin Forshea and Jay Clifton, so you still feel okay about that linebacker spot. And then behind Khalid Duke at the same linebacker spot is Desmond Purnell. So it's like, we're doing all right there. But Daniel Green is where the big drop off. There's like no depth behind Daniel Green at the inside linebacker spot.
Which is what they brought Brandon Jennings in to do, right? But he didn't want to be a backup. Is that?
I think that's what I want to say, but he was also getting moved around, and where I just don't think that was ever a good marriage.
Yeah. Well, John, you have any frustrations on that point?
Look, I've voiced it. They've not done a great job recruiting linebacker. They've had a lot of success in the portal, but not at linebacker, and it just is a puzzling position to me that they've missed on so much because, Kleiman being a defensive guy, you would think that'd be a position they'd be all over. Hopefully, Toby and Jake Clifton are going to change some of that here. And they're going to have to because Daniel Green is not going to be around anymore. So you're going to have to figure it out. They've done a great job with Austin Moore. It's not all been bad, but they don't have enough quality depth there right now to withstand losing Daniel Green. And that's the absolute backbreaker killer here at this point in time.
And this isn't just meant to be a 10-minute diatribe either, or to run down Nick Allen. He's coming off a torn ACL, and he's a former walk-on.
Yeah, it's not his fault.
Yeah, what they are getting
in a position where he's being asked to do more than he should be asked to do, and that's so. I don't really have ill will toward Nick Allen. It's
no. And considering the circumstances, what he's been able to do is probably pretty impressive.
Well, TCU sure picked on him. They figured that out pretty quick. Yeah. Garrett Riley's not a dummy, so he figured it out pretty quick.
DY, any chance that Clifton or Toby get on the field this year, you think? Other than Clifton, I know played a couple games, but do you think any of them can be ready?
Clifton plays the will.
Okay.
If we're looking for inside linebacker help, I don't know that's. I mean, I think that maybe what Toby's going to play. Not exactly sure. It might be, but I think he's a miles away from really understanding the game enough to be counted on because here's the thing. They're both going to make mistakes, right? Nick Allen's going to make mistakes because he's, physically maybe not up to snuff. And his length was actually what hurt them the most because it was easy for them to throw over the top of him because he's short and doesn't have long arms.
That's something that TCU exposed. They hit Jared Wiley, their 6'7" tight end. Yeah, so he had 62 yards receiving coming into that game on the year.
Yeah,
he had 74 yards against K-State.
If you're a tick slower than Daniel Green, you're not going to get as much depth. And if you're 3 inches arm length shorter and you're 2 inches, shorter, size, that's why length matters. People are like, why do we always talk about length? Well, to be honest, Nick Allen was in the right spots. He was doing what he was supposed to be doing Saturday. His problem was he's not 6'3".
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah, and now they're going to have Khalid Duke. I mean, that's the other thing. He got called for targeting. He won't be available in the first half.
Yeah, I mean,
I know you're getting some optimistic news, hopefully, on Brents, and I'm hoping that's holds to be true, DY. I know you have credible info on that, so hopefully he can play because he's K-State's most physical corner, and he's your biggest corner, and he makes a lot of plays in space tackling. He had 1.5 tackles for loss just against TCU in the half that he played, and I thought Jacob Parrish played really well in there, but he's 5'10".
He almost had a hell.
Yeah, that was so close. Showing his receiver skills there, right? But he's 5'10", and so he doesn't bring that, Echo in him. I thought Echo played solid too, but they're not the big physical corner that Brent's is, and you miss that physicality without him on the field.
Was the roughing the passer calling Echo a good call?
I didn't think so. No, I thought it was bad.
No, I thought that was kind of weak, but
I wouldn't know, DY, because TCU, hey, Bravo, they don't show replays.
Yeah.
TCU doesn't show any replays of any call that's in question, guys.
Except the Parrish one, and then they made it a screenshot on the screen where it was stupid.
Can I bring up kicker?
I mean, you can bring it up. That's an issue.
Someone's been saying it's an issue this whole time, even though, I got kind of
it was an issue
talked down there for a while.
Here's the thing, man. It's a delicate thing, not for us to necessarily talk about, but to know when to pull the plug.
Well, who do you go to? Zentner?
Yeah, I don't know. Is Jack Bloomer a kicker? No, I think he's a punter.
He's a punter. I don't know behind Tennant if it's probably a freshman. If you put Zentner out there, you're putting a lot on his plate. Kickoffs, punting, extra points, field goals. Now he's a kicker, though. I mean, I'm sure he could do it.
He's not a Butler, but yeah.
Yeah, he's got a big leg. We know that. I don't know about his accuracy but I think it's got to be under consideration, John. I mean, Tennant looks like he doesn't have any confidence out there. That first kick, 44-yarder, had no chance. Now, it was into the wind from 44 yards, 20-mile-per-hour wind. I get that. That's a tough kick, but you need to make one of those two, especially the 40-yarder with the wind at your back. Hits the upright. That one needs to go. You can't miss both those kicks.
The one that hit the upright is the one that needs to go.
Yeah. And I think they would have went, and I think Kleiman mentioned after the game, they would have went for the 4th and 2 when up 28-24 in that win.
Howard got hurt. He's not going to put in Jake Rubley.
Yeah.
It's never played a meaningful snap in his life on 4th down.
Yeah. So they were putting
Jake Rubley did have a 4th down, and he didn't get it. So
by the way, I thought they put him in a bad spot there on that.
Why do that? That was dumb. Punt it. I was like screaming at
I was okay going for it. Well, first of all, didn't they misspot the ball? Didn't Deuce get
the first down? What the hell?
We all thought Deuce had the first down in the stadium, but again, they don't show the replays. So
I don't even think we got a replay on the broadcast. I mean, remember the broadcast not only
broadcast is terrible too, right, Kurt?
They didn't. It's not only Brando and Tillman. They did not have a sideline reporter.
No, they didn't. Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing. There's nothing.
The entire operation Saturday in Fort Worth, from a television standpoint, from a fan experience standpoint, and to be honest, from a media standpoint, it's just a complete disaster because they still put the media away in media like us. most places, they're never great situations. Let's be honest. But most places, it's still good enough. TCU, they still put you in the damn loading dock. And we're sitting here having conversations with Chris Kleiman, and we hear all the equipment behind us just like being rolled off the truck or rolled onto the truck. And Chris Kleiman can't even hear us talk. Can't even hear us ask the questions. And for people that have, the audio recorders, that was probably a shit recording that they can barely use.
I told my group after the game, I'm in favor of kicking TCU out of the Big 12. I mean, I would just replace them with SMU and give SMU a shot now, because the arrogance from TCU fans, they have developed this just arrogance about them when I was around them on Saturday. And I just am like, the Big 12 really made you who you are right now, the reason you could build these facilities and everything. So just kick you out. I don't want you around anymore. So yeah, we had these college girls behind us yelling. Yeah. And I know they had success in the Mountain West, so I don't want to discredit that, but I had this
full blown Texas Tech homer in that newfound rivalry that has been blossoming.
I'm hoping TCU loses the rest of their games on the schedule. After that, you've lost a TCU supporter. I never had any issues with them before, and I can't stand those guys now. So hope they lose out.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess that's kind of an answer.
Hey, we did it again. We're really good.
I went off the rails. Tenant, yes. Tenant problem.
Fan base or program. I mean, the last one, Kurtz somehow made it Florida. This time it's TCU. Yeah.
Chris Tennant, man, I just something's got. I mean, there's a lot of problems. There's just a lot of problems. There's a lot of problems. I have a hard time seeing the route.
I feel like you've never remember when Cole told us your situation and how you went like 10-minute mute after Malik Knowles fumbled at the 1-yard line in Ames, and just like your soul evaporated from your body.
Yeah.
I feel like that happened from that TCU game, and it has not returned for you yet.
Yeah, I mean, and it was basically when I saw Will Howard come into the game, which seems crazy because he absolutely balled out and deserves a ton of credit. But
I'm happy for him too, man.
Yeah, for sure. But it was like, at that point, I was just like, oh God, like this game, what is the rest of the season? Because I'm sitting there going through everything I'm going through in my head already, where it's like the best thing the offense had going was Adrian's explosiveness on the ground. And now, even if he comes back, that looks like a knee. You're probably not going to have that the rest of the year. Will definitely can't take over quarterback ground game like that. Still kind of tripping over himself when he tries to get out and run. So you've just lost this valuable asset. I'm just going through this whole exercise in my head, and I'm watching him do this, and I'm like, okay, is this Jason Bean effect? And then he's going to kind of, turn back into a pumpkin. I worry about that. It's all that. It's not like I can get over one game. That's fine. But this to me was the potential. I felt like K-State lost multiple games on Saturday.
I was going to say that.
That's going to be a good quick hitter for you this week. Do you take Will Howard or Jason Bean? Yeah.
I mean, I feel terrible for Adrian too, just to have to go through another injury. I'm still perplexed. When did he get hurt, guys? Was it the first play? Because I didn't see him limping out there. And when he went to the locker room, he didn't go to the locker room until TCU scored on the ensuing drive.
So they showed on the TV broadcast, they showed after he threw the pass on third down, that was a little bit behind Sinnott, I think it was. He immediately reached down and was grimacing in pain. He kind of reached down toward his knee and was grimacing in pain. And then they caught him immediately. He went straight to the phone on the sideline and was having an intense conversation on the phone upstairs with, I assume, Colin, pretty quickly. So the TV in the broadcast credit, I will give them that. Their TV crew was able to catch that. So that's what we got.
And that limp just kept getting worse.
When he was they showed him going to the locker room, and it did not look good.
He was limping going to the locker room. When he came out at halftime, coming back out, it was worse. And it definitely wasn't good. So it's hard to see him. He's probably going to need at least a couple weeks, but I don't know. I mean, to your point, you can't run him right now. So you have to wonder who's more effective at that point. It's probably Will Howard being able to drop back and throw the ball. Otherwise, I don't know. Adrian is just a pocket QB, how effective he can be without his mobility. So Yeah, it stinks. But yeah, Will Howard, 10.1 yards per, actually 10.8, I think, per pass. K-State in that game, 10.1 yards per pass attempt, the second highest against TCU this year, only behind KU's performance. I mean, guys, you look at the numbers. K-State's 5.3 yards per rush, a season high allowed by TCU. They had held all but one opponent to below 4 yards per carry on the season. They were giving up 3.7 per carry on the year. K-State, 7.4 yards per play, second highest of the year against TCU. Only KU at 7.5 yards per play was higher. Mentioned the yards per pass. The biggest issue to me, every FBS opponent TCU played, the TCU defense had been on the field for at least 70 plays or more. They were on the field for 53 against K-State. So,
yeah. I just don't feel great about Oklahoma State. I'll be there.
Kansas State on DraftKings. I was making sure I wasn't crossing sponsors there. On DraftKings is a 1.5 point favorite at the moment.
And Bill Connolly on his SP Plus has K-State favored by 0.02 points, John. 28.32 to 28.30. Now, I don't know how that factors in injuries or anything.
These things, I was just about to say, do these things factor in injuries at all?
I mean, you would think like the
Vegas
books
would, but
so, and if his is reflecting the books, maybe it does.
I was surprised Vegas put out a line with the injury situation right now. I figured they'd wait a few days, but no, I mean, I think K-State can still win this game.
I do.
Be positive here, guys. So Spencer Sanders.
I like their chances more against Oklahoma State than I do Texas.
Spencer Sanders,
for sure.
Yeah. What a warrior Spencer Sanders is. Bijan Robinson running against a Daniel Green defense scares the hell out of me.
But if Sark chooses to abandon Bijan Robinson again, like he did against Oklahoma State, then
I will just say, like,
looking for 8 yards a carry, but Quinn Ewers still throws it 50 times and doesn't complete 20 passes.
Yeah. I think the best chance for K-State to beat Oklahoma State, and we'll talk more on Thursday, is like Spencer Sanders is a warrior, guys. A guy who's been around forever and continues to play through banged up, but he's turnover prone historically in his career, and he hasn't had that problem yet this year, really. I could see this be that 2 or 3 turnover game. K-State, all of K-State's turnovers forced this year have occurred at home. They haven't forced a turnover on the road.
Nope.
I could see K-State force them into 2 or 3 turnovers. Special teams, that's return game. That's how K-State's going to have to. They're going to have to find a way to score in the return game.
Oklahoma State special teams have not been very good.
They muff punts like crazy. Brandon Presley, he's a good receiver, but he likes to drop the ball on those punts. So, yeah. All right.
Well, maybe try not missing 2 kicks. You know, that would help. That would help on K-State special teams.
Just don't even try any field goals, John. Just go for every 4th down now.
It'll be crazy. Jake Rubley out there going for every 4th down. What could possibly go wrong?
Will Howard, probably.
All right. I'm done pouting for one day, I suppose.
K-State could go Wildcat exclusively, John. That's worked out well the last year. So,
yeah.
Hey, Texas won with Wildcat, though.
360 vodka, then holiday bottled and bond bourbon. Stuff it down your throat. Make yourself feel better. Whatever you got to do this week. See you out there. I'll be there on Saturday, Bill Snyder Family Stadium. Bring it there. But we'll have another pod for you, previewing the game
coming
up later on this week. Hey, basketball is like less than 2 weeks away now, right?
Hey, don't forget we got Keontae Johnson pod dropping. We got, you want some positive news. That's going to drop early this week.
Yeah, Keontae Johnson pod.
The season is 2 weeks away, I think.
That's what I
the Ichabods.
Tweeted about it over the weekend.
Washburn going down.
And we had a secret scrimmage with Southern Illinois over the weekend. So
highlights look good. I thought from the highlights K-State put out, it looked like one big. So I'm pretty pleased with that performance.
I don't think Southern Illinois scored if you look at the highlights. Yeah.
I saw a lot of Desi Sills in there too, guys. So a lot of Cam Carter. Yeah. How about that move by Naquan? I mean,
man, you really broke this down. I barely watched it once.
I watched it 5 times. I was trying to uplift.
I watched it a couple times. Yeah,
I was trying to uplift my spirits last night in bed. I literally, my wife was like, "What are you watching?" It's like I'm just, what I do. I watch a lot of basketball stuff right now. So, Keontae pod's dropping. We got Marquise and Naquan Tomlin pod dropping. So sometime this week, maybe. So listen to those two.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, take care, everybody. Heads up. put on a strong face. We got this. Go attack the week. And we'll see you soon on the next 3 months.